I want you to imagine this. It's very late at night, the streets are silent, and your family is quietly packing their bags. You don't know exactly where you are going, but you know you have to leave. Imagine how you are feeling. Maybe scared, maybe hopeless. The story we are about to explore is called Wishes. Let's read the first half of the story. The night wished it was quieter. The bag wished it was deeper. The light wished it was brighter. The dream wished it was longer. The clock wished it was slower. The path wished it was shorter. The boat wished it was bigger. Wishes follows the journey of a Vietnamese family fleeing the country by boat in search of safety and a new home. The story unfolds through a series of wishes from inanimate objects that are part of the family's journey. Wishes follows a typical narrative structure using an orientation, series of events, and conclusion to tell the story. The structure of the tests assists in mirroring the physical migration journey while representing the character's emotional progression from fear to hope. Wishes provide Stage 2 students with the opportunity to identify and describe how ideas are represented in narrative texts when drawing upon personal, social, and cultural contexts and perspectives. The purpose of this narrative is to entertain through its poetic language, emotional storytelling, and beautiful illustrations. As you dive into and explore this beautifully illustrated story, themes of hope, family, and displacement are explored. These themes allow us as readers to emotionally connect to the story, developing empathy and perspective, while some might relate to the challenges of cultural disconnect and migration. Mel T. Van was inspired to write Wishes based on her real-life journey from Vietnam to America after the war. Van shares her own experience of becoming a refugee in the final pages of her book, adding a personal touch to her story writing. Additionally, a key feature of Wishes is the minimal and simple text. Van has composed this book to include her Vietnamese community, hoping to unify the two languages she speaks. In Wishes, the author has carefully constructed experiences of displacement through symbolic illustrations, first-person perspective, and figurative language, guiding the reader's experiences. While readers contribute interpretive insight, the composer's deliberate choices guide audience responses, fostering empathy and expanded understanding of the refugee experience. The story Wishes centers the experiences of family. However, the effects of this journey are mainly observed through the lenses of a young female family member. The main character in Wishes is a young girl whose experiences and emotions are subtly conveyed through the symbolic wishes of her environment. Although her voice is limited, the narrative reveals her fear, hope, and resilience as she undertakes the difficult journey of leaving her home. Her characterization highlights the emotional impact of displacement and the courage required to face uncertainty. At the end of the novel, the reader can see her growth and development in her final wish, reflecting her sense of peace and belonging. Throughout the story, there are three main settings to progress the story and illustrate the family's journey. The story starts in Vietnam, set in the family's home and town where they must leave. Then, the story progresses to the ocean setting, illustrating the dangerous boat journey across the sea. Finally, the text ends in a new unknown land setting to symbolize arrival and safety. This illustration from Wishes captures the character's powerful sense of longing for home and emotional distance. The composition draws the viewer's eye from the close-up of the girl's face on the left, to the small boat into the centre, and finally to the glowing bubble of the family's Vietnam home on the right. The young girl is the most salient element within this illustration, immediately drawing the viewer's attention through large-scale and expressive gaze. Her direct gaze outwards engages the viewer, creating an emotional connection and inviting empathy of her feelings for longing, isolation, and uncertainty. The use of cool blue tones creates an isolated and melancholic setting to represent the boat journey, while the warm golden light surrounding the home symbolises comfort and safety. This contrast between warm and cool colours highlights the character's emotional separation from their home. The placement of the home within the glowing sphere suggests it now only exists in memory, representing Vietnam as physically distant yet emotionally close to the characters. To build emotional engagement, the text uses personification by providing inanimate objects with wishes. One of my favourite lines is, "The clock wished it was slower." This personification ignites emotional responses in the reader, suggesting that even time itself wants to slow down, conveying how difficult and intense saying goodbye is. When accompanied with the image of family members parting, the line evokes feelings of helplessness, highlighting the shared experience of wanting to hold on to your loved ones before saying goodbye. Additionally, the line, "The heart wished it was strong," evokes emotion in readers by expressing the pain and vulnerability of refugees. The idea that the heart wishes it was stronger demonstrates how the characters are overwhelmed by sadness and uncertainty. When paired with the image, the reader observes and understands the emotional and physical exhaustion refugees experience when leaving their homes behind. This invites the readers to empathise and connect with the themes of displacement and hope. For the language studies, students will explore the use of figurative language within the text, highlighting the use of personification. Using examples from the book, students will discuss the purpose of personification in this text, examining the author's intent. Students will make connections about how human emotions and desires have been given to inanimate objects to create empathy and emotional depth. As a class, discuss the difference between literal and non-literal meanings. Then, students can pick 3 examples from the text and analyse their literal and non-literal meanings. To develop creative writing skills, students will experiment with first-person voice to write a diary entry from the viewpoint of a refugee. They will imagine it is the night before they leave their home, considering the emotions of saying goodbye and facing an uncertain journey. Students will be encouraged to use figurative language to create emotional depth and engage the reader. By the end of this activity, students will have experimented with narrative features and devices, creating texts that aim to entertain while conveying perspective and empathy. To prepare students for this oral activity, students participate in a choral reading of wishes. As a class, revisit the meaning of perspective and invite students to consider the perspectives of different characters within the story. To allow students to practice their questioning and active listening skills, a game of hot seat will be played. Students will be selected to sit in a hot seat as a character from the text. Taking turns, students will ask questions to the characters, broadening their perspective and consideration of characters' feelings. To support students in the creative writing task, structured sentence starters and prompts will be provided to scaffold students' thinking and idea progression. Additionally, a graphic organiser may be utilised to further guide planning and organisation. The teacher will work with small groups of students requiring additional support, offering suggested prompts and resources to enable successful engagement in the task. Students who are extending will be encouraged to enhance their use of narrative devices within their creative writing. This will include incorporating similes, metaphors, and personification to create richer descriptions. Additionally, to create further emotional complexity, students will also be encouraged to include dialogue, allowing them to convey different characters' thoughts and feelings. The picture book similarly follows themes of displacement, refuge, and hope, following a young boy forced to leave his home behind to seek safety. Throughout his journey, the boy carries his home on his back, a metaphorical representation of his memory and identity. Similar to Wishes, this text captures the emotional experience of navigating an unfamiliar world while longing for safety. A Glass House of Stars follows a young refugee girl who has just arrived in Australia, navigating the challenges of adapting to a new country while trying to find a sense of belonging. The text uses the glass house as a metaphorical space for memory and imagination, therefore similarly using figurative language to convey the refugee experience. Together, both texts offer insight into the emotional and cultural challenges of displacement from a child's perspective. The picture book Wishes can be used in a cross-curricular activity by integrating English and geography. Students can research and map the refugee journey from Vietnam, identifying countries of arrival and considering the physical and human factors affecting this journey. The cross-curricular approach would allow students to engage with both the human experience of displacement as well as the environmental and spatial cultural context of migration, linking literacy skills with geography understandings. Overall, Wishes is a powerful book that emotionally engages readers, presenting powerful opportunities for Stage 2 students.